What's going on, you guys? So Slytherin came out with another development diary for Panzer Corps 2. This is the fourth one, and this one goes into a couple really cool things. So I wanted to jump right into it. All right. In the previous dev diaries, we have talked a lot about new features and mechanics we are implementing in Panzer Corps 2. But what about the core game mechanics, which have always been a fundamental part of the game? Will they remain the same, or will they be changed in the sequel? In this issue of the Dev Diary, we'll discuss how some of the core mechanics are going to be transformed. This is going to be cool. All right, turn limit. In a real war, late victory is often no victory at all, and the game represents this. The player must not just achieve the victory, but achieve it in a limited number of turns. This requires proper planning and strategy instead of just rolling slowly over the map and eliminating scattered groups of enemy units with a concentrated power of a core force. All this remains true in Panzer Corps 2, but we were surprised how many players feel that the turn limit is an artificial limitation which distracts from the fun of the game. I am among those. For such players, we are also adding an option to disable turn limit completely. Awesome! Adding such a checkbox is the easy part. The tricky part is to make sure the game remains balanced and fun with this option turned on. We're making sure that it's not possible to harvest more useful resources, prestige, experience by staying in a scenario indefinitely, and that enemy units provide an adequate challenge. All right, interesting. I like that. I always felt like, it would be so much easier to just add a checkbox if you want to turn it on and off. And I am one of those people that, likes to take my time. I'm a little bit more of an Eisenhower rather than doing the encirclements and thrust of blitzkrieg. So if you guys are not familiar, Eisenhower was more for a broad front, so slowly get to Germany, versus the blitzkrieg where you kind of make holes and go at it and then deal with the main core forces later. All right, so prestige. Prestige is the game's currency, and as its name implies, it is awarded for your successes on the battlefield. In Panzer Corps, there were certain exceptions from this rule, like minor victory giving more prestige than major, and this created a lot of confusion. In Panzer Corps 2, we'll avoid any such things, but a performance will be rewarded with more prestige. Awesome. Unit slots. Unit slots determine how many units a player can have in the core force, which travel from scenario to scenario in a campaign. Okay, interesting. In Panzer Corps, every unit occupied a single core slot. In Panzer Corps 2, that will change so that a unit can occupy one or several slots. More powerful units will take more slots. Okay, interesting. Very good. All right. Unit slots determine how many units the players can have in a core force, which travel from scenario to scenario in a campaign. In Panzer Corps, every unit occupied a single core slot. In Panzer Corps 2, this will change so that a unit can occupy one or several slots. More powerful units will take more slots. Interesting. Such an approach is not a novelty. It was used in a lot of similar games before, and many people thought that we had to implement it in Panzer Corps already. But of course, the change is significant and fundamental. The way it worked before, optimal core structure was obvious. You wanted to use all the best units available. Maybe you were not able to afford these units right away, but this was a clear goal to go in for the long run. It is no longer as clear cut. What is better, 3 Tiger 2s, 5 Panthers, or some combination of them? Maybe add some Panzer 4s and a Tiger is to mix it as well. With change unit slots mechanic, we expect to see much more varied core forces in Panzer Corps 2, and it will probably be more realistic too. Same is true for transports. Better transports cost more slots, so using them for every single unit in the core might not be a good idea. At the same time, we're not going to introduce specialized slots, for example, ground-only or air-only ones. We want the core composition to remain flexible, and the players are still free to go with ground-heavy or air-heavy cores if they prefer. All right, you got a nice screenshot here. All right. Got a nice army going on there. Love the textures on this. It's absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful. Unbelievable. Wow. All right. 3 more. Overstrength units. Units with more strength points than their type have always been very popular with our players, and in some cases they become outright necessary, especially when your opponent has more powerful units in his roster. We felt that it was imperative to keep this mechanic in the sequel. At the same time, overstrength was a big problem with game balance, while its connection to experience felt very artificial, and because of this, overstrength became significant only in the later part of the campaign. Once solved these problems, in Panzer Corps 2, any unit can get overstrength directly in the purchase screen from the very beginning of the game, but such units cost more prestige and slots than usual, so you can have fewer of these. Balanced Corps will include both overstrength and regular units, but the player will need to figure out the perfect ratio for himself. Entrenchment mechanic will remain fundamental the same. Stationary units will accumulate entrenchment over time. Infantry and towed guns faster, other classes slower, and it will give various defensive bonuses in combat. But in Panzer Corps 2, we want to make this mechanic even more critical. Nice. There will be more entrenchments level and specialized units, heavy artillery, strategic bombers, engineers intended to destroy them quickly. Another significant change is that unlike Panzer Corps, base entrenchment provided by terrain will not be destroyed. Base entrenchment is a defensive bonus created by a terrain itself, forest, hills, or mountains, and no bombardment can significantly reduce this bonus. Okay, cool. And support fire. Support fire is another signature mechanic from Panzer Corps. It is an example of interaction between units and allowed the defender to create clusters of defense, which were not so easy to crack by the attacker. All this remains true in Panzer Corps 2. However, we felt that in the prequel, artillery was not very useful in support fire role against tanks, while the class of AT guns was underused. So in the sequel, artillery will provide support fire against soft targets, while anti-tank units will provide support fire against hard targets. That is for today. Thanks for reading, and we'll have some have any questions about the core game mechanics will work in Panzer Corps 2. Post them in the comments. See you in the next Dev Diary. All right. So looking over this, a lot of the main elements here, like support fire, entrenchments, are just getting enhanced, tweaked a little bit. I do like the overstrength units that you can add them from the beginning, gives you a little bit more options. I am very motivated and excited about, which part was that? The turn limit. That was probably my favorite part. And I know some of you guys are like, come on, man, turn limits, you're probably saying they could better focus, there were other better parts in this Dev Diary, but I like turn limits because, there's a lot of games where I'm about to crush the enemy, but I hit the clock and I lost the battle. It's just like, really? Did I? I just needed like 5 more hours, so anyway. That does it for this. I really like this Dev Diary, guys. They're adding a bunch of cool stuff and tweaking whatever works in the game. So they're not just rehauling everything. They're like, okay, this works, let's just tweak it to make it even better. So I really love that they're paying attention to every facet of the game and what works and what doesn't work and building on that. So that's awesome. Anyway, that does it for this Dev Diary, guys. I will catch you guys in the next one. See you then.